Welcome to Pop Screen, a Geek Show joint. We are that corner of the Geek Show that likes to look at the good, the bad, and the preposterous of movies either starring by or about pop stars. No, the podcast covers a broad range of musical and cinematic genres, from country and western to hip-hop, from documentaries to science fiction. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. I'm a writer, filmmaker, and video artist, and I regularly write for the Geek Show and the Geek Show Patreon. And I am joined this week by
Simon Ramshaw, also a fellow film critic from the Geek Show, and also currently writing for Screen Anarchy and occasionally at Eastern Kicks. How are you, Graham?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm particularly excited because this is somehow, I think, unless I'm forgetting something, this is the first time we've done a Spike Lee film on the podcast.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. He's done so many.
He has, right? I mean, particularly if you consider his documentary stuff. There's a lot you could do.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot that you kind of would like to avoid, I guess, but isn't the whole point of this podcast, like, pop stars being in films is, it's a bit of a strange litmus test for the quality of a film.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
like, you should just veer into those waters.
Yeah, if it wasn't quite a bit like the podcast equivalent of Russian roulette, I wouldn't be as excited about it.
I actually suggested this one for you as well a little while ago. So
yeah.
I'm happy to have brought it to you, but it's a strange film to rewatch, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, before we start, can we just sort of go over feelings on Spike Lee? Because I think he's one of those directors who's been at it for so long and who's leaned so hard into his quirks that you sort of have to say up front, what your base level is with Lee.
Well, I started off in a really funny place. He was one of like my biggest blind spots, and I guess it was some sort of morbid curiosity that brought me to the Old Boy remake, which was my first Spike Lee film.
And you kept going.
I did keep going because there was a lot of promise out there, and I think I sort of like broke in a little bit more with some of his more recent stuff, Black Klansman, The Five Bloods, which I both enjoyed quite a lot, even though I think a lot of those quirks I think I'd sort of absorbed through, osmosis of, this is his style. So a few of them kind of felt a little bit like strange and baffling to me, especially with The Five Bloods and its weird insistence on having all the subtitles in headline speak. So like every single word is starts with a capital letter to read like a headline tweet, which kind of sort of sums up his very angry, often righteously worldview.
Yeah.
And that did come to do the right thing quite late.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I think that one was one that I was, when you're never in the mood for a masterpiece, and eventually you are, and you put something on and you're like, okay, that really did knock me for six, even if Spike Lee himself, the actor, is glaringly miscast as ostensibly the protagonist.
He has always said that he casts himself out of desperation. He does not think he's a good actor at all.
Well, I just find it a little odd, though. Well, I mean, I don't know if this was like his view on the matter back in 1986. Is it She's Gotta Have It from back then? Yeah, something that annoyed me about that film was he was billed in the credits as like kind of the star of that film after the lead actress, and he's just one of the boyfriends in it. But it was that sort of triumphant and Spike Lee, and I was like, okay, all right, man, you don't I know you were in it.
You've given yourself the and, yes.
Exactly. The all-powerful and. I'm generally a fan of him. I have no desire to rewatch the Old Boy remake, but I am curious about some of his other sort of late style things. I was actually in Manchester a few weeks ago, and I managed to pick up an Italian import in a vinyl shop of The Sweet Blood of Jesus, which is
Ooh,
his remake of Ganja and Hess.
Brandon Hess, yeah.
Indeed. So, which is not supposed to be nearly in the same league as Ganja and Hess, but I always think that there's something quite, liberated about him, whether it's a good movie or not. So I always think it's worth a shake.
I agree. Yeah, I think I'm in a similar spot. I think for a long time I just kept catching the wrong Spike Lee movies. I remember seeing Girl 6 very early on and really bouncing off that. But I have read since then Bell Hooks' essay on it, where she loves it, and she was quite a tough critic of Spike Lee in his early days. So maybe I should give that another go. But I saw 25th Hour and thought that had a great cast, but wasn't really a great film. And I think, as well as maybe not catching his best films, like you, I didn't see Do the Right Thing until ages in. I also think it's a matter of me changing. I find the sort of flamboyance and artifice of his movies less of a problem than I used to. I think maybe it's just a thing when you're young, you sort of think the ultimate criticism of anything is, that doesn't sound like a real person talking. That wouldn't happen in real life. And after a while, you sort of think, I've got enough real life, mate. I'll settle for a film. I want it to be like a movie. And by the time I'd sort of come round to that, Black Klansman was out, which was a real sort of career triumph, a real sort of comeback after some overlooked films that he'd been putting out. And I adored that. And I went back and I watched often for the first time things like Clockers and Do the Right Thing. And yeah, I think he's really wonderful now. I think, as you say, he's not always great, but he's always really going for it in a way that not many other directors bother to.
Yeah, I don't think he ever can be accused of phoning it in. I haven't seen all of Inside Man. I think that was one that I sort of caught on the TV one night, and that was just a film where I was like, oh, right, so this is kind of a gun for hire movie, but there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here.
Yes.
And he's having fun doing it. And I've also just remembered that he did David Byrne's American Utopia,
which would have been a perfect film for pop screen. How have we not done that?
Well, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship with Spike Lee, I think.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So
and I've just remembered he's done Summer of Sam as well, which, gosh, sorry, I'm just looking at the list, and Summer of Sam is also like one of those full-throated,
Summer of
experience
Sam's
movies.
Incredible. Yeah. Did you find, like, I assume like me, you came to that slightly late. Did you find it kind of revealing that, like, I'd heard loads of British critics sort of do this irritating thing where they went, of course, Adrian Brody's punk is a complete caricature and his British accent is terrible. And then you watch the film and you think, that's the joke! That's the whole point of the character!
Yes. Yeah, and plus he drops that act rather quickly as things get, serious. So, yeah, let's not be those guys and say like, oh, I only watched the first 20 minutes. Come on, guys. Even though that was me with Inside Man, but whatever.
Inside Man I like very much, and it's also, of course, for a while it was the last time he collaborated with Denzel Washington, who has a sort of position as the De Niro to Scorsese, until they reunited for this, the film we're talking about today, Highest to Lowest, an Apple TV, Apple streaming project. And I want to say loose, but actually, bar the setting, I think it's a surprisingly faithful remake of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low.
And also readaptation of The King's Ransom, the Ed McBain novel, so that this version sort of brings it back to New York City, albeit in quite a sort of culturally different time. It's a very, very 25 movie.
Yeah, it
There's
really
none
is.
of the 50s pulp that was to be found in the McBain novel.
I mean, other than the fact that I think Spike Lee has an element of kind of 50s pulp just in his directorial personality. He's always talked about how he's a great fan of Elia Kazan. I think he's like the last living filmmaker who reminds me a bit of Sam Fuller, in that there is that embrace of melodrama even when he's at his most serious.
True.
That is very unusual in a director of any younger generation.
Mm-hmm. How in how high regard do you regard the original High and Low?
You know, it was one of quite an embarrassing amount of Kurosawa films I hadn't actually seen
Same.
until I did the research for this podcast. So it was interesting finally getting the chance to watch it. I think for me with Kurosawa, the historical ones usually land a bit better with me. They're the ones where I think, oh, I can't think of anyone, doing it at this level. But it is a very good film. I think they're both slightly too long, but they both use their runtime in a kind of interesting way that says a lot about the director's priorities.
And indulgences.
Yeah, very much so. And I think if you're uncomfortable with the director's indulgences, you shouldn't be watching a Spike Lee film, because he's just like that.
That's just it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we doing a sort of general overview of the plot, what it's about?
Yeah, I
For
mean,
listeners who may or may not have seen.
I'll give you a quick capsule description, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think this may be one of the rare pop screens where I give a little warning for spoilers, because I think in order to talk about both the film's take on music and the way that it adapts its inspiration, I think you have to go like very far into the third act, beyond the quote unquote twist, if you will. But yeah, basically, it's a thriller about mistaken identity, but unlike most mistaken identity thrillers, it's not about an innocent man being mistaken for someone guilty. It's about an innocent child being mistaken for a different innocent child. They're both about a kidnapping that was supposed to hold to ransom the son of a very wealthy industrialist, and end up kidnapping the son of one of his close associates by mistake, but still ask for the ransom. And
I mean, if you have the kid,
yeah,
why
I
not?
think one of the interesting changes for me is that in the Kurosawa film, Mifune, because of course it's Mifune, it's always Mifune, his character comes to the conclusion that he should try and pay the ransom, or at least sort of make the pretense of paying the ransom, without us seeing that much of the associate whose son gets kidnapped. We see a bit of him, but not as much as we do with Jeffrey Wright here, who's a very sort of rounded and very idiosyncratic character. And I think that happens because, like, one of the big differences between Japan in 1963 and America in 2025 is that if you imagine that if you tell a big CEO that, one of their friends' kids just got kidnapped, you half expect them to just go, "Fuck's this my problem?"
And
yeah, so what? So they have to spend a bit more time really cementing that bond for the story to work, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit easier to buy into, really, because I think the economy of High and Low basically depends on how these characters are initially existing in this, very modern or mid-century modern apartment in Japan, and there is that sort of dynamic between the quite timid chauffeur who is not a particularly verbal character initially, and you've got this, but then you've got this sort of really nice crackling chemistry between Jeffrey Wright and Denzel Washington in this.
Yeah.
Although the film around it is so much messier because it's kind of veering between different stylistic modes. You get a bit of Oklahoma at the beginning, and then you're straight into the world of hip hop and soul music. It's a bit of a strange whiplash, and you're also getting the politics between Knicks fans and Celtics fans, thrown at you straight out the gate as well, and and consistently throughout the movie too. It's a really, really funny one to start, like, to get the ball rolling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you do. I think what you miss in this version is that claustrophobia and the idea that somebody is physically being watched. Because the kidnapper, I mean, I guess sort of minor spoilers for High and Low, is always watching from some point down in the town for which Mifuni's character lives, up in his ivory tower. And with this one, you don't really get a sense of that geography. It's more like a sort of more straightforward, almost like TV pilot introduction to the world of the film.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, I watched the Kurosawa film after I watched this, which was interesting. Yeah, it was an interesting experience because I remember thinking for the first half of Highest to Lowest, thinking, oh, Spike Lee seems really restrained here. Like, directorially, this does not have a lot of his usual ticks. And then I watched the Kurosawa film and I thought, oh, right, because he's doing this. The first half of it is, I think, very much a love letter to the kind of clean, spacious quality of Kurosawa's framing. Everything's a mid shot. He's not keen on close ups. The camera movements are never obtrusive. He's fond of framing people in front of like big windows with big views out of the city. It's not alien to Spike Lee's style, but when you see it indulged this much, you think something's going on. When's someone going to stand on the camera riser?
Yeah, but when they do, hits
it's
like
great.
Crack.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in terms of like the difference in the setup, did you think, and I'm prepared to say that there might have been some cultural context I've missed because I've never been like particularly knowledgeable about Japanese culture and history. Do you think that the shoe company in Kurosawa's film really carries any metaphorical weight, or is it just like a business a rich guy might have?
Well, I think it's a good question because there's like I think that the shoe company in itself is like it's foundational to every person going about like their daily life. Because if they ain't got good shoes, you're gonna get back problems.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get the arch support that you need. If you're going to work, you're not going to be as industrious as you'd want to be. And I think particularly for post-war Japan, the idea of like being able to sort of like be on a sort of solid foundation is extremely important. And I think that's why he's viewed as a figure of like integrity who needs to be brand managed as such.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good interpretation. I think you're right. Whereas, I mean, while there are, I think, subtle and subtextual things in Highest to Lowest, the nature of the company in it is not one of them. That's upfront. That's explicit commentary in Lee's film. Because Lee changed it to a record label, and a record label that specializes in usually soul, but certainly always black music and is black owned.
I think it's more of a statement of blackness, but then also black excellence as well. Because you will see, I mean, there's an awful lot of Denzel having conversations with like these figures of black culture from the 20th century who are important. There's Aretha Franklin, there's Martin Luther King, there's Jimi Hendrix. And they're all looking at him and watching him. And then there's also like a very funny, and also I'm going to say a little strangely placed Kamala Harris poster in the son's bedroom as well. And I'm like, wow, a 16-year-old boy clinging on to the ideal of the Kamala Harris election campaign. Wow, that really is quite something. So I think the company is more of an illustration of King's sort of financial struggle to get up to the top, and obviously that is it's I think it's framed as more of an emotive thing in this version,
right?
Because there is more struggle to it, culturally, rather than just Kingo in High and Low, who basically had to struggle with everybody in his country that had been laid low by the wall.
And when I say like this is commentary, I mean that when Lee is writing about black music and black-owned record labels and the struggles they face with buyouts and exploitation from the wider industry, I mean, he isn't talking in metaphors there. You can say this is a metaphor for the wider black experience, but I really think Lee is talking about this because he wants to talk about this. He's always been very concerned about the ease with which black art can be co-opted. I know for some people he's a part of that problem. Generally, when I read like negative critiques of this film, I think about 90% of it mentioned of some really shitty commercial that he directed. And it's like...
Was it an AI commercial by any chance, or crypto? Was it crypto?
There was a crypto one.
Right,
right. I mean, if this film is any indication, I don't think he's that interested in AI.
No, that is true. I forgot about that wrinkle.
Yeah. But, there's always that balance when you're trying to get ahead in a system that is not made for people like you. And you can recognize that through a racial lens or class lens or, any kind of outsider lens you want. And I do think it adds something to the film that, part of what David, the Denzel Washington character here, is fighting for is, children, is the literal children that he's, that are being kidnapped. And part of what he's fighting for is children, as in his legacy, as in the artists that he nurtured and gave to the world. And I think that's a really strong parallel. It's the second time I think you've been on something where we've used this phrase on this podcast, but good dad movie in both senses of the word.
Yeah. And there might be a third coming very soon. Is that right, Graham? Yeah.
Yeah. Hint, hint, tease, tease. Yes.
No, that is 100% on the money. But like, there's a lot of dadisms in it which are just so lame and corny as well. I think a lot of people. I think when I was reading a lot of the early Cannes reception, people were comparing it to Megalopolis in how sort of like in its own head it is, and it's nowhere near that level. But I see it in the fact that it is unapologetically its director's own vision, and he will very frequently stop the drama to underline that. Just there are so many moments in the film which are like, they'll do a sweeping statement about social media, and it is always just social media. There's I don't know why, but like just people referring to that sphere as social media. Just I know it is what it is, but it feels very kind of like outdated in its own way.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It's like information superhighway at this point.
Yeah,
Meta.
exactly. There's also a very funny moment as well where there is a meme shared which features Denzel Washington's head being photoshopped onto Black Panther's, rippling body, and that same image ends up on the front page of a newspaper. Like, what are we talking about here? Do you think the proliferation between shitty Twitter memes and also the front page of the New York Times do you really think that's going to interlock like that?
Well, yeah, that isn't where I thought you were going to go with that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I can absolutely believe that the Daily Star or something would put a Twitter meme on their front page.
Right.
I have no problem believing that at all. But like the thing about that is, and I found this quite charming, but it is really janky and off, is that I looked at it and thought, does Spike Lee think that memes are all made by Terry Gilliam? Because it does not look like a meme at all. We are at a stage now where we can say, all right, memes, very open format, anyone can make them, but there's a meme style. There are subsectors of that style, but I think, people...
It's just a really bad Photoshop.
Well, it's got a very cut out aesthetic, hasn't it? Which is not a part of any meme I've seen. If it's that bad, you play up to it, you deep fry it, you put like Shutterstock logos over it or some shit.
Activate Windows.
Yeah. But those levels of kind of online irony are alien to him. He's just like, well, it's like a funny picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do a funny picture.
It's something that I would show my children on my phone and go, haha, isn't it funny?
Yes. I mean, the counterbalance to this, and one that tells you exactly sort of both what generation Spike Lee is from and where the film's sympathies lie, is that later on where we see David on the cover of a fake edition of the New Yorker, that's spot on. That gets the New Yorker house style dead on.
Well, I mean, if he's a regular subscriber, it's what you would hope. It's what you would hope for, isn't it?
It's a good magazine.
On the subject of memes, though, there are so many great Denzel reaction shots in this.
Yeah.
There was actually a point
in it, isn't he? That was one of the things I noticed about his performance. Yep. There's a lot of that in it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's sort of often like tumbling over himself, and like sort of one thing is sort of careering into the next. I'm thinking of the one where he basically gets told that the deal to buy back Stack and Hits is off the table, and he's trying out different positions of where he should shoot himself in the head. There's like just one just sort of like leads to the other as he's sort of spinning around in his desk chair. I've seen that one quite a lot, and I think ultimately that is the cultural impact that this film has, is the Denzel Washington suicide meme.
He'll love that, I'm sure. Like, he'll be overjoyed by that.
But I think that is also like a credit to him, as like he's a guy that has had so many sort of like great reaction shots over the years that like it's the entire human experience through the face of Denzel Washington. It's obviously it's like the my man thing from Training Day is like the biggest and the best, but like there was one from Flight that I saw today that was attached to a thirst post, and it was him sort of like saying, God help me, as he's drinking his water at a court testimonial, because he's always like completely sincere. I don't think Denzel Washington has ever been like above a performance. You know what I mean? He's always like completely trying to convince you that this person exists, however cartoonish and flamboyant they are.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, that's been a great boom to him over the years. We're less than a year away from Gladiator, in which there were people seriously campaigning for him to get an Oscar nomination for just maintaining some sort of semblance of reality in a film that has ancient Roman newspapers.
I mean, I really like him in Gladiator 2, but I think you are right that I think he perhaps comes off better because everything else is so crushingly middle ground. And he's the only thing that you can actually call "quote unquote" good in the film.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people who you could call "quote unquote" good in this film. I mean, I think Jeffrey Wright's an amazing actor, and he's always great, but he's particularly great in this.
Yeah.
And then you've got the musicians in it, and I think there's three sort of. Well, no, there's really four big musician appearances. It's just that only three of them are by people you'd say are big musicians. There's that bit at the end from Ayanna Lee, who is not, as far as I'm aware, a particularly famous singer. Her name is in black on the film's Wikipedia page rather than blue. So
no link.
No link. But she gets the literal showstopper, doesn't she?
The curtain call.
Yeah. So that's nice. I thought that worked well. Out of the other three, I guess I'll take it in sort of ascending order of screen time, because the first musician who appears on screen is also probably the most negligible of the film's musician appearances, which is this very brief, very odd cameo from Ice Spice.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, on this rewatch, I must have been making a coffee or something, because I was just like, have I missed the Ice Spice scene?
Yeah.
Really blink and you'll miss her, bless her.
I mean, she's quite hard to recognise without the sort of big frizzy red afro that she normally has. But yeah, it's very strange. There were some negative reviews of this film that particularly took issue with it for its depiction of hip hop culture, which we'll get onto because that's a whole area in itself. But Andrew Lawrence in The Guardian, the black journalist, not the dead-eyed racist comedian, it must be a fucking pain in the ass having the name someone like that. I should know. I've got a family member called Andrew Tate, and it's been a fun few years for him.
He should just change the Roo to an E and go by Andy.
Yeah. Market himself as the Andrew Tate. What's he going to do? He's the one who's out of prison at the moment. So
this is true. He could take over the mantle and change it into something better. I'll let Tim Heidecker with InfoWars.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Andrew Lawrence in The Guardian said that this is like a bait and switch, that I think Lee has no interest in Ice Spice beyond getting her fans in to watch something that he thinks will be edifying to them. I don't think it's that cynical, but like I say, it's an odd appearance. I can't figure out why she's there.
Yeah, maybe it was just they're friends, and
maybe, yeah.
It was just like, I've got a nice little role for you. We can shoot, and then we can go for a drink afterwards. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Next is the person I was most excited about seeing, Destiny Frascari, aka Princess Nokia, the inhabitant of apartment A24 in this A24 film.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Not many A24 directors will go for that. I think it would have livened up Midsummer no end if it had had a little call out like that in it.
Well, Under the Skin might have benefited.
Yeah, they're all too serious. They won't do it.
The zone of interest, the one thing that it's missing.
Oh dear, no.
Anyway, yep. I enjoyed her in this. Yeah. There's something very authentic about her, and I think the way she sort of plays the sincerity of being an actual fan of David King without like knowing the or without even suspecting the her true relationship to him, I think is pretty well played.
Yeah, I think she's very good. I love her music. I think Girls was one of my favorite albums last year. Big shout out to her 2020 project, because she's tough in her music, but she's very vulnerable as well, and she's talked a lot about her mental health struggles. And so in 2020 she released 2 albums on the same day, one called Everything is Beautiful and one called Everything Sucks, the nature of which can be divined from their titles. And that was really good. They were great albums. But yeah, worth checking out, Princess Nokia. So then you're just left with A$AP Rocky, which I think is the point where we'll have to give our like final spoiler warning, listeners. If you don't want spoilers and you have held on this long, you gotta bail out here, because we are going to get very spoily when we talk about A$AP Rocky's performance here.
Yeah, I am not entirely convinced by him in this film, and I think it is ultimately due to the way that the simplicity with which his character is written.
Yeah,
because his, in comparison to the kidnapper in High and Low, there's something really sad about him and his origin story. And here, he's kind of just your tenner-penny, ignored gangster character, which I don't particularly think. I mean, it's a nice, it would be nice if we all made it, and we've all got some talent. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's nothing about him that makes you think like there's a tragedy to him.
Yes.
That, I think he plays it as it's written. I don't particularly think it's a problem with him as an actor, because I think he's very good in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You.
Yes, I was going to raise that.
Came out earlier in the year, which I know you weren't particularly a fan of.
I disliked the film. I disliked the film, but I thought he was one of the bright spots in it.
Yeah. Glad we're in agreement there. Well, I don't know. I think you get a nice A$AP Rocky song out of it.
Yeah.
It is almost like a parody of modern hip hop, to the point that it's maybe a little flippant, but I think actually as a song, very catchy.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, and it also has that odd detail where in the Kurosawa film, there's like loads of clues that lead them to the kidnappers. There's Mount Fuji in the background. There's a particular aroma in the house. And in Highest to Lowest, all that is shaved back to mad bars. That's what leads them to the place. And for all, as I say, it's got some flack for what was perceived to be like Lee's out of touch opinions on modern hip hop. I do think that probably it was quite attractive for A$AP Rocky to like play a character where the police are led to his door, because his sound is so distinctive that it can only be one person, right?
I mean, to be honest, yes. Like,
yeah,
I'm not tremendously into hip hop, but I'm familiar enough with A$AP Rocky to know his particular style, and I'm not saying I would have recognized it if I was, kidnapped and duct taped up in a bath, but maybe there would be some corner of my brain that would have recognized it.
I'm not sure I would have. I'm not saying I'm like a super hip hop head. I'm not even that familiar with A$AP Rocky, but that is textually what does the trick in the film. That
It is.
The kidnapped kid is like, yeah, he's just got this flow that doesn't really sound like anything else I've ever heard, and the police are like, Eureka! My notes say that both eyes closed, which is not the giveaway song. That's Trunks. He did too for the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
But let it be said that my notes say it is a moody banger.
Critics are calling it a moody banger.
Yeah.
What do you think of the song that ends the film, Highest to Lowest?
It's fine. It's like it's a bit sort of torch songy for my tastes. It's not.
It's a corny belter, I think I'm going to say that one.
Yeah, moody banger to corny belter is the spectrum of this film's songs.
In my head, I think that Deep Blue Sea has actually ruined what the Highest to Lowest song is in my head, because I think I watched Deep Blue Sea pretty soon after I watched this originally, and that ends with, I mean, this is just like my dumb brain, but you know, the LL Cool J song, deepest, bluest, my hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest, bluest, my hat is like a shark's fin. I'm always thinking of highest, lowest, my hat is like a shark's fin. So when she starts singing this, you know, sort of like, you know, beautiful sort of, you know, song that builds and builds, I'm just thinking about LL Cool J singing about like octopuses in the Titanic.
Yeah, it's funny. That song is like the centerpiece of a lot of the criticisms I read from a lot of black critics, where it's like, oh, we've sat through, you know, Spike Lee denouncing modern hip hop, and now he's going to teach the kids what real music is like. It is a bit like that, but I also think, I mean, for all Young Felon, the excellently named A$AP Rocky character,
it's so good a name that I can't believe that it's not actually out there already.
It's good, isn't it?
It's great.
I remember like at the peak of SoundCloud rap, I always wanted to have a series of like mumble rap alter egos where they would all be mumble rap versions of the fake drug names on Brass Eye. So it would be, you know, Lil Jessup and Young Clarky Cat. That was my plan to get rich.
Or die trying.
Yeah. Yes.
There's still time for you, Graham.
Yeah, it's never too late, is it? There's a lovely quote from Alphonse Pierre in Pitchfork, which I don't agree with, but as disses go, it's pretty spectacular. He says the film looks down on hip hop, quote, with the satirical wit and nuance of the comment section under a sexy red video.
I mean, it's broad, but I don't think it's, you know, it's a thesis. I don't think there's anything particularly snarky about it.
I think like
it's a statement of intent.
A lot of them zero in on the fantasy sequence towards the end, which is the bit with the riser shot, you know, where David is transported inside a Young Felon video. And a lot of people were saying, oh, it's such a cliche, it's such a stereotype. They've got women twerking in it. Well, you know, that is not the most up-to-date reference point for modern hip-hop. It's like, you know, Miley Cyrus ensured that your nan was complaining about twerking over a decade ago. But it's not come from nowhere, is it? It's not like something that Lee has pulled out of thin air.
No, but also, I don't particularly think that it's depicting it as, you know, the thing that King would be won over by at all. It's there's something about it which is so deliberately, you know, off balance, and it's something that ultimately doesn't work for him either, because that scene then sort of transitions to a much more naturalistic scene of Young Felon talking to David and asking him to take him on the record label, and he's like, no. Obviously not. So I think the dream sequence is actually in Young Felon's head rather than it's you know, David being sort of brought into his world. It's
definitely.
Yeah. So I think there's just something kind of parodically delusional about that scene that I don't think is worth taking seriously as a as a screed against modern hip hop. I don't see that at all.
Yeah, I think maybe the casting of A$AP Rocky drew people off, but I don't think you have to take Young Felon as being emblematic of modern hip hop any more than you have to take like Rupert Pupkin as being Scorsese's brutal broadside against 80s comedians. It's just some things are just individual pathology, even in a film as metaphorically loaded up as this.
Yeah. What do we think about the moment where the film literally locks it into place, which is the handoff sequence? Because, like, would you agree that the first 55 minutes really struggles to find its footing, even on like a moment-to-moment basis? Because I mean, I know we'll get on to like the big set piece in a moment, but like there was a moment where it's a discussion between one of the shareholders and David about being cancelled online if he doesn't pay the ransom, and it's this sort of slow pull in mid shot on the two of them, and it sort of pulls in as David is understanding more and more what his point is, and then it cuts, resets to the same setup just a little bit further back when it kind of feels like it should have a perspective shift to like a shot reverse shot or something else. It's just something that feels like an assembly cut that you would have put together at the end of the day just to see how the scene was working. Right? It's just there's something like weirdly comically poor about the moment to moment editing in the opening stretch, which some of it's very purposeful, some of it's very like there's a discussion between Paul and David in the office where it's like it's cut into all these different angles to sort of show the like the throatness of it all, and it's a bit tacky, but it's not like completely foreign to what Spike Lee's doing in general. But there's just some of it which is just like actively poor, and then that sequence in the middle kicks in and you're like, oh, the movie is happening.
There's an element with the beginning of it where, like I said, it's Lee trying to wear someone else's shoes. It's Lee trying to do his homage to Kurosawa, and it worked for me a bit more, but it's still kind of an awkward fit. It's interesting in the Kurosawa film that they both have that set piece of the protagonist deciding to make the money drop at about the same time. But in other ways, highest to lowest feels like a much slower start. In high and low, the actual kidnapping happens about 10-15 minutes into the movie. Highest to lowest has a lot more character setup and a lot more like going in depth on what the nature and the history of David's business is to get through before the kidnapping even raises itself. It's got a lot more stuff about college basketball, which Kurosawa inexplicably omitted.
Well, I mean, sometimes you just have to question the geniuses, you know what I mean? What were you thinking, Akira? Come on.
Yeah. I know what you mean about the sort of that setting, and I think it's the moment where it makes most sense as Spike Lee film. You said that it lacks the claustrophobia of the Kurosawa film. I agree. I think part of it is because it doesn't need the claustrophobia. You don't, if you want to spy on someone now, you don't need to be physically like on the same street as them. There are other ways that you can do that, but also because Lee is not really a claustrophobic guy. This is one of the many reasons why he was an odd choice to remake Old Boy, because if you want someone to make you terrified of a confined space, Park Chan-wook can do that. If you want someone who can make you feel like a big bustling city is both the most wonderful place on earth and a violent tinderbox waiting to erupt at the same time, and that's the contradiction, and it's great. It's New York, baby. That's Spike Lee's territory, and that's what the drop sequence is all about.
Yes. I must admit, I don't normally do this, but on my first watch of it, I was watching it on a train on my phone, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did not notice that there were so many shifts between shooting on 16mm film and digital during that sequence.
I can't say I
So,
did.
right, on a rewatch, you really, really see it. It's like the color grading
Okay,
is so completely different, and it's extremely
interesting.
disorientating. But I think the trade-off there is like you really feel Lee kind of getting to do the thing that he wanted to do the whole time.
Yeah,
And I think that is the handoff sequence, which is very tense and exciting in the Kurosawa version, but it does not have anywhere near the liveliness that Lee does
yeah,
with his. I think it's one of my favorite scenes of last year. Uh,
it's great.
sort of
Yeah,
slightly adrift in a film that is, lackluster in other places, but man alive, there's something so exciting about just all those different, I mean, you've got the Eddie Palmieri score, which takes over the second half on the Puerto Rico
yeah,
day parade. But at the beginning as well, you've got that, and I really like the score to this movie. The Howard Drossen score with the Fergus McCready piano on it.
God,
It's
talk
just an
about that. Yeah,
incredible driving force
yeah,
that
yeah.
really brings that sort of underwhelming climax to life as well.
Yeah,
I think it's
Drossing.
so interesting to have like that level of sort of like Western like
Mm-hmm.
horse driving music that is motivating this crime thriller. Strange.
Drossing is like, I don't know if apprentice would be the right term. I don't know if that implies a sort of junior status that he doesn't have, but he used to orchestrate for Terence Blanchard, who, of course, is Spike Lee's regular composer.
Ah.
And I think he's learned well from Blanchard. I think the great thing about Blanchard's scores, particularly in Spike Lee's films, is that he's never afraid to like provide an emotional counterpoint to the scene rather than
Mm,
just telling you what to feel. It's sort of like what Scorsese does with, needle drops and putting sort of fun girl groups pop over like violent beatings. But I
mhm.
think people understand it in Scorsese's films because it's a needle drop, whereas when it's a purpose written score, some people are like, oh, shouldn't this be telling me what to feel? No, not always. Scores can do different things.
Yeah.
And I think this is another area where Lee is picking up on something in Kurosawa's film, because that has, that fantastically ironic sort of all of the big action scenes in High and Low have this easy listening music over them. And I
Mhm.
think for Kurosawa, it's like the sound of the modern streets, isn't it? It's like if you go out and you have these fights and chases in 1960s Japan, it's not going to sound exactly like it would in Throne of Blood. You're
Mhm.
going to be hearing like the chintzy music from a local restaurant drifting through as people are having this life and death struggle. The ending has that classic aria, just one cornetto. Hope so. It was ahead of the time that they name checked the ice cream brand in the opera. But but that's all over what Drossing's doing here. There's that lovely thing where the detectives in it are discussing the mechanics of the money drop and how they're going to pull it off. And there's just this light, tinkly jazz piano in the background. And you think, that's sort of wrong, but it's also sort of right. Like, if you were in that scene, you wouldn't want to listen to sort of pounding tom toms, upping the tension. You'd want to put something quite calming and minimal on in the background.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
there's
what
so
you get.
much of this movie as well, which like the pivotal moments are people listening to music to get
Yes.
to a point. So it's a film about mood music, really,
Yeah,
to
very
lock
much so.
in.
Every time David needs an up, he puts like one of his favorite soul records on, which is both completely convincing in character and also just adds a bit of extra character to the music, really. You've got
Mhm.
Drossin, you've got these classic soul tracks. You've got the music contributed by A$AP Rocky. I think all of Spike Lee's films, at least the ones I've seen, are very plural. They've always got loads of voices in them, and the music really delivers that here. Have we got anything more to say about this? I know it's quite a packed film, but
I think it's a very slippery film. I think I've covered most of the main points I wanted to entertain, but yeah, I think I didn't quite enjoy it as much on a rewatch, but I think that is also down to finally seeing what people were on about when it came to just how weirdly put together it is.
Yeah.
And I think listening to its points for a second time, all these sort of broad satire points on, hip hop and cancel culture and AI and social media, it's a little tired even now when it's, the data recording, it's 11 months since it came out. But, I have an affection for it because I'd rather, a filmmaker who's getting on like Lee is, I'd rather them take massive risks. And that's why I like films like 28 Years Later. That's why I'll go to bat even for something as bad as Megalopolis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this one as like an interesting curio, but I do think that High and Low has the much more significant genre and cultural value.
Unquestionably, but I think there's also a lot more value and ambiguity in this than people were initially prepared to admit.
100%.
It's funny that you mentioned the cancel culture thing, because when I was watching it, I thought, is this the first film that really gets the kind of Trump 2.0 era of like post-cancel culture, the era where Drake's still having hits for some fucking reason?
Yeah.
Because it's like, for all they're warning him that he'll be cancelled if he doesn't do the drop, it's interesting that the consequences for botching that drop are totally different for him than they are for Mifune's character in High and Low. Mifune gets vilified, whereas he's depicted as Black Panther on the front of newspapers. And in the end, young felon being arrested for kidnapping does his Korean no harm at all.
No, but that's also the thing where I was kind of like, this is dumb, but actually the world that we live in is dumb.
Exactly.
And, we have a convicted rapist in the position of power in the White House. So, maybe not so far-fetched.
Yeah. I think that's like that's the barrier that a lot of filmmakers who are trying to be tuned into the world as it is now are hitting, where it's like you can't really reflect this easily in a film. You can do it, but it's hard because people want fiction to make sense.
And sometimes it doesn't have to.
Sometimes it doesn't have to.
There was one thing which I was originally, I noticed it at the time when the film came out, and I was like, oh, is there an article in this? But it was basically positing Denzel Washington as the new Toshiro Mifune, because he's basically been in 3 remakes of Toshiro Mifune films.
So there's the Magnificent Seven.
Yes,
is obviously Seven Samurai derived.
Yes. His character is not a parallel to Mifune's character in that, however, but there's still a connection. The other is The Tragedy of Macbeth, which is probably the closest Macbeth adaptation to Throne of Blood.
Yes, it is.
Stylistically.
Yes. Yeah, you're quite right. So, I think this is why I never get bothered by Kurosawa adaptations. I know that, when something like this or that Oliver Hermanus film Living that was based on Akira and announced, some people are scandalous. How dare you remake the work of a master? It's like, well, yeah, you've got a job being as good as that, but no one's denying that. But I don't think you can really talk about cultural appropriation in this context, because so much of Kurosawa's work is a dialogue with culture from around the world anyway. We said at the start of this podcast, this is based on an American pulp novel. a lot of his films were. Some of the others were based on Shakespeare, some of the others were based on Dostoevsky. And it feels like, the fact that he makes those and then they get made into stuff like The Magnificent Seven, it's part of a nice conversation, that different filmmakers from different cultures can have.
Mm-hmm.
And
He's the ultimate handshake filmmaker.
Yeah. And I'm just happy that there's still a little bit of that going on in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Simon, tell people where they can find you online.
So you can find me on Letterboxd, Simon Ramshaw. You can find me on Twitter at FilmicThought. Which might also be my Blue Sky, but let's go have a look. I do tend to put more stuff out on Twitter, even though the sinking ship is still continuing to sink at an unprecedented rate. Oh no, I am just Simon Ramshaw on Blue Sky. I have a Substack also called Filmic Thought. I am eventually going to publish some thoughts on the Odyssey, which I wrote 3,500 words on in one night and realized that's not interesting to people. So I'm going to try and cut that down a bit. And then hopefully you can read some detailed thoughts on the Odyssey from me. But yes, main bylines are currently Screen Anarchy and The Geek Show.
As for me, you can find me on Letterboxd by searching for Graham Williamson. You can find out about new films and gallery projects I'm involved with and other stuff that doesn't fit in anywhere else by looking at my website, grahamwilliamsonfilms.com. I'm on Instagram at GrahamWFilm. And I am also regularly on The Geek Show and The Geek Show's Patreon, to which I contribute a bonus episode of this every month. We are doing the Odyssey. That should have come out by the time this comes out. So we are both hacking our thoughts on the Odyssey down substantially as you listen to this. I also contribute to the Geek Show's Outside the Blue Box series about what Doctor Who personnel do outside the show and much, much more. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. In a couple of weeks' time, we're going to do Steve, that Netflix film with Cillian Murphy that has a choice role for Little Sims in it. But until then, I've been Graham.
And I've been Simon.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.